So you want to drop a few pounds. We have all been there. You go to the web and you're immediately bombarded with the latest fad diet. What celebrity lost 20 pounds with this one weight loss pill? The next supplement that's going to 10x your fat loss. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of gimmicks out there, and weight loss is one of the worst fields to find scam products. So today I'll outline what myths to avoid, what actually works for fat loss, and then we're going to round it all out with some practical tips that you can start doing today to make your fat loss and your diet that much easier. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to take control of your weight loss journey and be on your way to a happier and healthier version of yourself. So now that we got that out of the way, we can go ahead and start looking into the myths. And there are too many to put into this one video, to be honest with you. This would turn into a 3-hour-long podcast if we were going to cover every single one. But I've identified some of the main ones that I see pervade in the fitness industry. We're going to go through and dispel some of the popular claims that's being thrown around online. So probably one of the biggest myths is that fat loss should be easy and fast. Fat loss is most certainly not easy nor fast. Just look around at any average American and you will know fat loss is just not coming very easily to a lot of people. Anyone trying to tell you that, or more like sell you that, is just lying to you. There are certainly ways to make it easier and make it more efficient, but fast and easy is not how I would describe fat loss. Now, this one has been around forever, and it is the idea that carbs somehow are inherently more fattening than any other macronutrient out there. Nope, a caloric surplus makes you fat. Not carbs, not sugar, not refined grains. It's a caloric surplus. As a matter of fact, many carb sources are very health promoting. When you look at whole grains, legumes, fruits, and vegetables, these consistently have better outcomes in terms of BMI, health, long-term health span, fitness levels, all the things that you want and we should care about when looking after our health and our diet. These are very health promoting. And so it's been a real shame to see that a lot of these carbohydrate sources have been thrown underneath the gutter and really dragged through the mud as of late, when in reality, they're great sources and actually great tools for you in your fat loss journey. This segues nicely into myth number 3 here, which is the idea that there is some perfect diet out there that is going to fix all of your issues. The truth is, the best diet is the one that you can stick to. And the one that you can stick to ideally puts you in a calorie deficit, which is what we're looking for long term here. You're not going to have fat loss or any weight loss without maintaining a caloric deficit. And if anyone is achieving weight loss on a certain diet, that's why. It's not what specific meal timing or food choices they're making. It's the fact that they can consistently be in a caloric deficit over a long enough period of time to see meaningful weight loss. We don't want to miss the forest for the trees. So caloric surplus is the forest, and the trees are all the little minute details that people fret over in a lot of these diet plans, and they're really just irrelevant in the long run. Myth number 4 is that the time of day that you eat controls whether or not you're going to lose fat. This is totally false, and this has been debunked a number of times now in numerous studies. The amount of caloric intake compared to the amount of caloric expenditure is what really matters. There are some cases to be made when meal timing could have a beneficial role in metabolic health for certain individuals with certain health conditions, but for the vast majority of people, it's really hard to make an argument as to why you need to either fast, have all of your food at the beginning or end of the day. At the end of the day, funny enough, all that matters is whether or not you're sustainably keeping a caloric deficit. And that's how you improve your health markers over the long run. Tying into meal timing, this idea that fasting is somehow king or the key to unlock your weight loss. If fasting helps you eat less calories, then yes, fasting is king for you. But what if fasting makes you feel restricted? It makes you feel like, man, this diet really sucks. And that cheesecake that I saw last night sitting in the grocery store aisle looked really good. You know what? Tonight, I've been fasting really hard. I think I deserve that. What if fasting makes you binge? Then guess what? Fasting is not the option for you. And it's not the make or break deal as to whether or not your fat loss diet is going to be successful or not. It's just a tool you can use to achieve the caloric deficit. Find the diet and meal timing that works best for your preferences and your schedule. Ideally, the one that causes the least amount of friction is going to be the easiest one you can adhere to over time. And this next cardio myth is one that hits home for me as someone who really likes to lift weights. And it's this idea that Cardio is the way to lose weight, and you're going to cardio your way to the body of your dreams. Lift weights. We have several studies now showing that lifting weights is as effective or superior to cardio in causing and facilitating fat loss. Remember, we're after fat loss, not weight loss. You can lose weight and still actually be at the same body fat percentage by the end of that weight loss, because the majority of the weight you lost was lean mass. It wasn't fat mass. When you lift weights, you're preserving your muscle mass while simultaneously losing your fat mass. This actually improves your body composition, so you really look better, and it maintains your metabolic rate. Muscles are a very metabolically active tissue, and it takes a lot to maintain and repair muscle cells. So when you consistently weight train, you're actually increasing your caloric expenditure per day, making your fat loss more effective. So we can go on and on about the myths for days. Those are just the few that I've identified. If you can think of any more that you've heard, drop them down below, and we'll discuss those in the comments. But what's the truth when it comes to fat loss? What things really do matter? Well, it turns out it's a lot simpler than what a lot of the online gurus and fitness experts want you to believe. So we covered fasting, we covered timing, about all these claims being made around this is the way to lose weight. But we've alluded to it earlier. The best way to lose weight, in fact, the only way to lose weight, is to be in a caloric deficit. So what does this mean? It means we're expending more energy, we're burning more calories than we're consuming. If a diet worked for somebody, it's not because of the food choice, it's not because of when they ate it, it's because that diet was able to allow them to sustain a caloric deficit. And no, you are not someone who has broken the law of thermodynamics. If you are, you could probably make a lot of money if you figure that out, because there's a lot of physicists that have failed. I see this all the time in social media comments, people claiming that they legitimately eat zero food, 0 calories, and they somehow gain weight. At that point, it's just people not being honest with themselves. And we actually see this when you look at food recall questionnaires and studies looking into this, that people often underestimate the amount of calories they eat by a lot. And when I say a lot, some cases it's around 2,000 calories. So you can imagine what that might do to someone's perception of, if they think they're eating this 1,000 calorie diet and they're not losing weight, that somehow they're broken. When in reality, it's just a tracking and a food choice issue. So all these other principles basically just help you achieve a caloric deficit. But we're going to keep diving into them. If you get better sleep, you're going to have a better looking body and a better feeling body and brain. Better sleep improves hunger regulation. Sustained poor sleep habits can actually increase the level of hunger felt at each meal and simultaneously decrease the amount of energy you feel. So you're driven to eat more and move less, which is the exact opposite of what we're looking to do here when we're trying to lose fat. When you sleep better, number one, you're fueling your recovery from the gym training session that we are definitely doing now after the weight training section we discussed earlier. So you're helping your metabolic rate out there and you're helping your performance in the gym. It improves your mood. It helps with your self-regulation and your self-control. So you are more cognizant of the decisions that you're making, and you're able to better judge long-term risk for short-term pleasure. All that means is that it's easier for you to continue to exercise and continue to choose the food choices that you're getting you towards your goals. So of course, coming back to it, lifting weights definitely works. Lifting weights is a must, in my opinion, in any fat loss endeavor. You have more muscle, you have a better physique, so you have more motivation, and that just equals more fat loss. It's more fun than cardio, unless you're really into cardio, but I don't think, if I'm being honest, I know guys who have gone from cardio to lifting. They love lifting. I've never met anybody who has gone from lifting to cardio and has been like, yes, cardio is the thing for me. I can't believe I wasted all of my time in that boring gym. If that's you, that's okay. But I would still recommend lifting weights at least 3 times a week if you are aiming to maximize your fat loss and get to the physique that you ultimately want at the end of it. It typically burns roughly the same amount of calories in the given session as a cardio training session would, except for a lot of people, lifting weights actually has an appetite suppressing effect. So you're better at regulating your energy expenditure throughout the day. And because we have to recover that muscle mass, that tissue, in the session it burns about the same amount of calories, but over the entire day, it may actually boost your energy expenditure for a prolonged period of time. I wouldn't take that to heart, and it's definitely not the main thing to hang your hat on. I wouldn't say that, hey man, I had a great chest day today, so you know what? I deserve an extra 1,000 calories. I'm getting that Big Mac and strawberry milkshake. That's probably not the way to go, but these things do add up over time. Also, another thing that people don't realize is that distraction is very powerful in managing your hunger. And when you spend an hour to 2 hours of maybe showering or getting ready to go to the gym, actually training, and then cooling down, showering afterwards, and then maybe building a community of people as well who can hold you accountable, that goes a long ways into eliminating 2 or 3 hours of your day where you probably were going to be thinking about food if you are genuinely hungry and deep into a fat loss diet. So it serves many roles in helping you burn fat and build the body that you want to see. So with all that weightlifting, let's talk about protein. This is something that is fortunately becoming more and more well known in the world. Protein is being popularized. People like protein. And most people, quite frankly, are eating enough. But for the few out there who really don't like protein and their breakfast looks like just cereal with almond milk, and they go throughout the day, they have a few pieces of bread, and they come home and they have a salad with no protein on it, then you're starting to see probably some negative effects, at least less benefits than you would from the other side. So we want to consume enough protein to fuel our training and maintain our muscle mass. So that's about 1 gram per pound of body weight. Realistically, it's probably about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, or 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight for my European folks out there. The 1 gram is easier to remember, so I just stick by that. Protein may also have an appetite suppressing effect. This has been shown in the literature. It does seem that this kind of peters out over time. So like if you were eating, let's say 100 grams of protein and you went to 150 grams for a period of time, that would actually blunt your appetite. But over time, it returns back to normal. So in the short term, it may have an appetite suppressing effect. If you're someone who is coming from a low protein diet and you move to a high protein diet, it could make it a lot easier to adhere to your diet. And I threw food choice in here as something that does work, even though I dispelled it earlier. It's because the truth is, you really can get results on any diet as long as you are in a caloric deficit. So there's a very famous study. I think a nutrition professor, went on a Twinkie diet. So we ate only Twinkies and some Little Debbie products for, I want to say 6 weeks. And through that time, he tracked his calories. He maintained weight loss that whole time, and he lost weight. He looked and felt better, and his cardiometabolic health, so his blood panel that they took before and after, had improved pretty substantially. So that's the power of a caloric deficit. However, better food choices can certainly make it easier. So these are some general heuristics if I'm looking for a food source that I want to include in my diet that's going to make dieting easier for me. We want foods with high fiber content. So fiber takes up area in the gut and the stomach, and it draws in water. A lot of time it expands, and it's great for gut health. So fiber is a really crucial micronutrient, even though it's really a macronutrient that a lot of people don't talk about. And fiber intake also has been correlated with a bunch of positive health outcomes. So the more fiber you can include in your diet, I think the better. Foods with high water content tend to be very satiating and have a low calorie density. And a lot of the foods with high water content also have high fiber content, because that whole fiber draws in water thing really does happen. But think of foods like watermelon, cucumber, eggplant, tomatoes, apples, all fruit, a bunch of vegetables, some dairy products. All these things have a pretty high water content and relatively low calorie density. So they help fill up your stomach, and they don't provide a whole bunch of energy that goes with it. Thick and viscous foods. So these foods actually have a high amount of a certain type of fiber, and that's soluble fiber. So there's insoluble fiber, which is fiber that doesn't dissolve in water or doesn't uptake water, and there's soluble fiber, which is one that expands. Psyllium husk is the classic one that people think of. But oatmeal is a very thick and viscous food that has a ton of soluble fiber. And this is something that tends to be like, I've heard people describe it as like concrete sitting in their gut. And it just like, man, you eat a bowl of oatmeal and it feels like it's digesting forever. That's because the viscous fiber is bringing in water and it's filling up your stomach. And this is a very powerful tool you can imagine for managing your hunger in the long term. And also, it's got a whole bunch of health benefits that go along with that. A lot of whole grains have plenty of soluble fiber. Certain vegetables like eggplant, like okra, actually is an underrated vegetable. They have a ton of soluble fiber as well. Now, this is one I don't hear talked about that often. A lot of the people in the flexible dieting crowd believe that you should include all the food choices that you want and still have all the fun, tasty foods and make your food just really glamorous and like, man, every meal is a big event. There's probably a place and time for that in some people's diets. And I'm sure this is very individual, But in my experience, it's actually a lot easier if you just eat plain foods. So foods that aren't necessarily crazy, like tasty and craveable. And there's a few factors that go into this. Number one is if every meal is something that you really look forward to and you have to plan around how you're going to make it just the most epic meal and taste great, that brings in a lot of cognitive fatigue and maybe a lot of planning and unnecessary time thinking about food, which can ultimately hurt your diet progress in the long run by making you kind of obsessed with your food choices. So I think that's a factor there. And then the whole point of dieting is to ideally eat less food. So if you make your food taste really good, you're going to want to eat more of that food. Now, this is to a certain extent variable because some people can and actually do better with having something that they love and enjoy and that satisfies a craving. But for myself personally, I like to just blacklist those items if I'm in a fat loss phase. Because for me, that black and white decision of, oh, well, I'll just have one square of chocolate. I'm not having one square of chocolate. So that's where I am on that. That's very individual though, but I figured it was very useful to throw that in there, that plain foods are particularly underrated in the fat loss world. And so plain foods could look like whole foods. I actually taper down my salt intake because I like really salty things, and just the little bit of salt decrease makes it a little less appealing. Obviously, it's not repulsive. I still enjoy the foods that I eat, but it's not like an extravagant event every time I consume a meal where it's like, man, I love this. This tastes so good. I want more of it. It's just like, no, it's enough to satisfy me. The food serves its purpose, and then I continue on with my day. So finally, we made it to our practical advice section. So we covered the myths, we covered what actually works, and now let's see what we can do right now today to make our fat loss that much easier and more successful. I would say walk more. We talked about lifting weights, but what are you doing outside of the 1 to 2 hours that you're in the gym? Ideally, you should be walking, and you can actually accrue a substantial amount of caloric expenditure by just walking more. So a good goal is to shoot for 8,000 steps a day, ideally higher. A lot of successful natural bodybuilders utilize this approach because it's pretty low fatiguing and it's actually very mentally relaxing, and it allows you to sort of distract yourself from that food environment if you're really struggling. So you'll see guys go up to anywhere from 15,000 to 20,000 steps a day. And yes, it is possible. I know for people that are constrained to a computer job, it may not be as feasible as you may seem, but you'll be shocked what half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening can do for you. Park further away at the grocery store, park further away from the gym, walk 5 minutes and walk for 5 minutes before your workout, walk for 5 minutes after your workout. After a meal with your family in the evenings, take your dog out for a hike. You'll be surprised how quickly you can accrue 8,000 steps just by being a little more proactive throughout your day. Walk when you're on a phone call. An under-desk treadmill can go a long ways. Even just getting on and walking for 3 miles an hour for 10 minutes, every hour or every hour and a half, it'll do a lot for your productivity and making you feel better, and it can go a long ways in your fat loss. But if you're someone who is maybe sitting around 3,000 steps right now and you say, no way I can add 5,000 steps a day to my regime, I would just start small. Start by adding 500 steps. Be more proactive during your day. Take little breaks, stretch breaks, time to walk around the office or time to walk around your job if you're able. And then add intentional walking time in your free time. Or maybe while you're actually watching like your favorite show, if you invest in like a $150 little walking treadmill, just make a deal with yourself. Say the first half of my favorite show, I'm going to just take a stroll. And what you'll find is if you really look at it as an opportunity to improve your health, it actually becomes quite enjoyable. And it's not like this thing you have to do, it's this thing that you get to do and you want to do. This next tip helps in the sleep department. If you don't have a sleep schedule and routine right now, that you would actually see a pretty significant benefit if you went ahead and just implemented one. A basic sleep schedule is just ensuring that you go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. This doesn't have to be perfect, but I would say aim to be within half an hour of the same sleep and wake time every day. And this goes a long ways in anchoring your circadian rhythm and it helps your body regulate its energy expenditure, hunger management, and it makes your day a lot easier when you're not constantly thrown back and forth into having to wake up early during the week, wake up later during the weekend. It makes the transition and the whole diet experience a lot easier. Find quiet time to yourself before bed. Ideally, this is not on a screen, even though this, let's be honest, a lot of us are on screens before bed. So I think that's okay. I would say set your screen to night shift mode. A lot of devices have the ability for you to actually pull blue light from your computer screen, or even set it to grayscale. That's even better, and I would lower your brightness. Maybe consider blue light glasses. Even though those haven't been very well investigated, I think they still make sense to try. But what I do personally, and honest, this changed my sleep, is just read. Just find a really good piece of literature that you're into. I've been into finance and business lately, so right now I'm reading $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi, and I love that. It's something intellectual. It's time for myself. It's sort of creative, and it really just unwinds you before bed. So if you can implement something like that for yourself, I would highly recommend it. It goes a long ways into helping you sleep better and ultimately helping you lose weight, lose fat, maintain muscle. And when you do actually go to lay down, you want your room to be cool, to be dark, as little light as possible. You may find that some light background noise does help some people sleep, but if you can sleep in silence, I think there's a few studies out there showing that complete silence is actually pretty good for sleep quality. So a cool, dark room, some light background noise after you've relaxed, then you're good to go. Now, this next tip goes into actually what your meal schedule looks like. And I would say that you should meal plan ahead. Let's be honest, making decisions in the heat of the moment is hard. If you're faced with the decision at lunch, if you're going to eat a salad that you have to make yourself, or if you can go swing by Chipotle and grab a burrito. I mean, Chipotle is going to win 9 out of 9 times, 10 out of 9 times. I know for me it would. But if you have your meals set ahead, number one, you've already invested time and money into that meal, so you're a lot more likely to eat that meal. Number two, there's no decision at all. It's right there. And it's convenient, so there's no time investment in the moment, which is crucial because humans are actually pretty bad at weighing long-term, short-term outcomes. And even going as far as to planning the time of day can super simplify your decision process. And some people argue that it's more restrictive, but what I found is more freeing. It just mentally, there's less headspace going towards thinking about food, planning about food, what meal am I going to eat next. You already know, you've already calculated your macros if you're into that, which I do suggest. But and you know what's coming, so there's no craving involved. You just follow your diet, you follow your plan, and you go on your way to looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger in a few weeks. And I would suggest that you find recipes you like, but don't really crave. We want to enjoy the meals that we eat, but we don't want them to be so tasty that it's super hard to put the fork down. It goes back into the tasty foods versus plain foods conversation. If you're drinking regular soda, switch to diet soda. There's nothing wrong with these artificial sweeteners. They've been made out to be very bad. We have plenty of data now showing that when you switch sugar-sweetened beverages for non-nutritive sweetened beverages, they consistently show better health outcomes in the non-nutritive sweetened beverage. And funny enough, in some of these latest studies, they actually outperform water substitution. Diet sodas and non-nutritive sweeteners can actually help you fulfill that craving without adding any additional calories to your day. That's super powerful. And finally, just a little conclusion here. Long-term consistency beats short-term perfection every time. Striking a balance between strict and flexible is key. Some people will do really well on very strict and diet regimens where they have everything tracked out on a spreadsheet. It's all planned out. They have it down to the minute, when and what they're going to consume, where, and then what time and what exact set and rep scheme their gym workout is going to look like and what their cardio routine is. And if you were to give that same structured routine to someone who is more flexible and someone who is more creatively minded, let's say, and it feels like routines box them in, they're going to fall off the rails in 3 days. So it may be a very different approach between you, your aunt, your best friend, that celebrity you saw. There's a reason why there's so many diet tribes and so many ways to lose fat. And it's because they genuinely all work. This is what makes me so mad. Everything works, but it's finding what works for you and what works for you in the long run. So be understanding with yourself and be honest. If you're sticking to a diet and it is really tough and you're just doing it because the latest blog article told you to, really reflect and say, am I achieving my goal here? Because ideally, we want this to be a lifestyle change, not just a short-term fix. Simultaneously, if you're someone who has tried everything and you're bouncing from diet to diet, be honest with yourself about your goals and hold yourself accountable when you need to. And realize if you're going to become the type of person that is able to stick to a fitness plan and diet plan, you need to make steps every day to reveal and assume that identity. Ask yourself, would future me thank me for the decision I'm about to make? That is a super powerful reframe that pulls you back into third person and allows you to look at the problem, the situation from a holistic view instead of being caught up in the emotion of the moment. Now you can extract yourself and realize the bigger timetable and the bigger scale, the grander plan that's going on here. So, all that to say, losing fat is simple, but simple doesn't always mean easy. We need to maintain a caloric deficit, and we need to find a diet, a meal plan, an exercise routine, and a schedule that fits with our needs, our personal goals, wants, and desires, and aligns with our schedule so that we have the least amount of friction possible and maintain adherence for as long as possible. Mindset shift is huge here. A lot of people have been trying to diet for a long time and haven't found success. And you may be thinking to yourself, if you're in that boat, this just isn't for me. I don't have what it takes. I just am not that disciplined. I would encourage you to have faith in yourself and believe that discipline is a figment of a lot of people's imaginations. And in reality, the people who are the most disciplined really just make the hard things easier for themselves than what other people do. So finding the diet, finding the structure that works for you is so crucial. This is a long-term investment in yourself. So don't get discouraged if the results aren't coming as fast as the YouTube titles and thumbnails tell you. If you want help with your diet or your training, I do offer a free coaching consultation, and I will link that down below. I would love to work with you and help you achieve your goals, understand your personal story, and really create a plan that is genuinely tailored to your situation and your needs. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you the best on your journey. You got this.